Afternoon, everyone. My name is Alan Hayden. I am the Director of Alumni Relations at the New Orleans Center for Creative Arts, NOCCA. And this afternoon's presentation is a partnership with the Jazz Museum. NOCCA is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year. It's an art conservatory where students study different disciplines, everything ranging from classical instrument, dance, drama, creative writing, culinary arts, media arts, entertainment production design, and of course, jazz. So this afternoon, we will be having a presentation called NOCCA and Katrina, 20 Years After the Storm. And you're going to hear stories from alum that were in New Orleans when the storm hit and get to have a discussion about where their life has been before the storm, during the storm, and after the storm. So without further ado, please put your hands together and let me welcome our panelists for this afternoon. We have Jonathan Bloom on drums, class of 1976. We have Andrew Baham on trumpet, class of 1998. We have Gladney on saxophone, class of 2010. And on the keys, piano, we have Gentleman Sharp, class of 2000. Welcome. So our discussion is going to be a little fluid, and we'll also have some music in between as we share stories. Again, my name is Alan Hayden. I was a dance alum, class of 2001. So maybe get this conversation started. If we can, let's have everybody kind of go through the line here. Tell us a little snapshot of your life in 2005, either summer 2005 or where you were in real time before everything changed.
So, me?
Sure.
Good evening. How you doing? 2005 was a very strange year in my life. Not with just Katrina. New Orleans in itself was in transition, meaning the school system was broken. And I remember one day, you got to be careful what you wish for. Remember, I said that. I had a map, and I put a ruler. I put one part of the ruler on New Orleans, and I said, I went to like Houston, and I said, I'm gonna just keep that same distance all the way around, because if I have to relocate out of New Orleans, I want to be able to still be close to home. Little did I know the storm was gonna come. And I was working at a school that was mandated to take place called NOCCA Academy, which Gladney was one of those earlier students in that particular school. It was a feeder school for NOCCA. But because of funding, the schools were in disarray and everything was crumbling. And we didn't know what was gonna happen. Many people were losing their jobs. And the first week of school, they told me, you have to leave NOCCA Academy. You're going over to another school. And I was heartbroken. I was like, man, I couldn't believe it. And I was at the school, and I started struggling with some kids. And I just remember right before we took the weekend off before Katrina, my kids just were beginning to get a sound out of their instruments. And I said, oh, wow, we don't sound like we stabbing animals. And, you know? And so I told them, I said, look, y'all, this is going to be good. I hear it coming. It's coming. You know, teachers know when the light comes on, you know. And I told them, I said, look, we probably going to miss Monday. The storm is coming, and we probably will be out for the first part of the week. See y'all after that, and we'll pick up from there. Little did I know that storm had grew, but it had grown into it, and here it comes down the alley. And, you know, that was the beginning of that, the middle of the year as we transitioning from summer to fall about this time of year. And, you know, it was bad. So we'll get into, if you want to hear some more gruesome stuff I got. How much time I have, Alan?
That was good, Andrew.
Okay, I don't want to take up all the time. I don't want to take up all the time.
Where were you in 2005?
2005 was one of those years where you have a transition, anyways, that was happening before the storm even came. Um, I had just started coming into my own as not only just a musician, but as a person. I was just getting over the starting to come into my own because I lost my dad a couple of years before, and so and I'm wondering what's going on and out of life, figuring it all out, and playing brass band gigs, just like a lot of others who had horns, uh, I was one of those 10 gigs on a Saturday type of guy, and the weekend that the storm was supposed to come, I still wound up doing about 10 gigs because everybody was still having their parties and everything else and all that good stuff. Um, my mother, she was one who survived the Betsy and Camille. So she was not, her idea of the storm wasn't really there. So she, was like, well, we can ride out the storm, da da da. We're like, nah, mama, we gonna figure something else out because I don't know what it is that's telling us. We got to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
So, so she found us. So she found 2 comp rooms. She got 2 rooms comp from the casino to stay at the Lowe's. We go to the Lowe's up on the 18th floor. I remember it, like it was yesterday. 18th floor, where. And so we come back down after the storm passes, and to see that we had some we had 2 vans in the parking lot across the street. The storm busted out all the windows, that type of thing. Busted out the sides of the windows, the side windows, and all that good stuff. So it is what it is. So we're like, well, we're gonna figure this out because we're looking around. It doesn't look bad. We just sit it out and go back home and assess the damage. We go to sleep. Next morning, me and my brother-in-law get up to see if we can find some food in the area because we heard everybody, people in the French Quarter had that leftover food that they couldn't leave in the freezer any longer. And so, we buy something, whatever. But as we're going down Canal Street, we're at Canal and Peters, South Peters. We can see the water coming up Canal Street from about as far as maybe like Rampart. So we're at the foot of Canal Street, and we see the water coming up, and we just kind of looked at each other and was like, okay, time to go. We were just, like I said, I'm grateful every day because we actually had a way out before the chaos really ensued. And so we were able to cross the Crescent City Connection Bridge right before the National Guard came and closed it down, shut it down. So we were able to get up, go up 90 to 55, Interstate 55, to our family, where part of my family is from, in Tangible Hole Parish. And it just so happens that, like, they didn't have any lights, but they were like literally in the in the driveway waiting for us, because we were the last ones that they hadn't heard from. And so it's like, some things just happen for a reason. And I cherish the experience, even though it just shows you who's really in your corner, who can actually help you, all that good stuff. So, yeah.
In August 2005, I was entering the 8th grade, and I was a student at NOCCA Academy, the school that Jonathan Bloom was recently let go of. And from my vantage point, I was, the year before then was my first year taking formal jazz instruction. And that was under Jonathan Bloom and the legendary Clyde Kerr Jr. So summer of '05, I'm learning that they both won't be returning to NOCCA. So for me, I was heartbroken going to NOCCA without these people who gave me so much information and really set me on my path in my career. So I was in the 8th grade, and maybe there for a week or two before the storm hit. And as most people know, New Orleanians usually don't expect the storm to be too much to handle, so we usually ride it out. And my family rode the storm out at the American Can Apartments on Orleans and Orleans by the bayou. Yeah, eventually needing to be rescued by helicopter. And we experienced being on the interstate late. We got there right after the cots had been delivered to the thousands of people. So we had just missed the cot.
Wow.
But there's a family next to us who was nice enough to give us the cardboard box that the cots arrived in to lay on until later buses arrived. And my family was able to get on a special needs bus because my grandfather is blind. And so that led to us going to Dallas for a few days. Grandfather took a plane to New York, which is it's funny to me. I don't know. I got a crude sense of humor, but he hightailed it, and because he had people out there he knew, and me, my mother, and my stepfather went to South Carolina where we had family, and we stayed there for 3 months until we returned in December, before all the street lights were back on. But I was back in school by January.
Okay. Fall of 2005, I was a graduating senior at the University of New Orleans. Interesting enough, I had already been a professional dancer. I trained with Alvin Ailey. I'd done summer repertoire with the Houston Ballet, and I had done 3 seasons with the New Orleans Saints as a cheerleader. So my senior year, I'm thinking, what am I doing? Am I still going to be a dancer? I'm not sure. Am I staying in New Orleans? And interesting enough, we were talking about like the trajectory of things. Southern Methodist University had accepted me 4 years prior to be a part of the dance program in Dallas. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to leave, so when the storm was brewing and people were talking about evacuating or not evacuating, I decided, well, maybe I'll go to Dallas. I had family out there and some close friends. And then, of course, like everybody on this stage who packed one bag, we had that one bag until we started our new life. So, but when the storm hit, because I did evacuate before
Alan,
Saturday.
I'm sorry to excuse. I told my wife and them, I said, y'all bring 3 outfits, because she had packed the whole house. I said, bring 3 outfits and all the drawers you want.
So let's piggyback on that. We mentioned some other big storms in New Orleans, and that we don't really plan to evacuate, right? We bring, one duffel, and then nothing happens.
Yeah.
Or we ride the storm out for Camille. We ride the storm out for these other hurricanes. Betsy is something that we have been hearing about or experienced if you were around in the 60s. But Katrina, for this generation, was groundbreaking and monumental for a lot of reasons. But again, yes, the one duffel bag or not to evacuate at all was just our culture. So, but I did evacuate the weekend before Saturday, and I had to experience through television and hearsay, because cell phones weren't working, of what my family was going through, like being rescued, like Gladney here, off of their roofs, or being rescued, like Andrew, off the side of the interstate because they did not evacuate. But, so that is where I was in 2005.
Much of my story is like theirs, and believe me, none of us are telling you everything. We're being conscious of the
It's
time.
a snapshot.
That's
There's
true.
so much more to each one of these stories. So where I was in the city of New Orleans. But when I think of the question, where was I think of it as, where was I in my young development? Where was I in my mentality? And there was some family turmoil. There was a rift in my friend group. I had gone through a breakup. I had lost a full ride scholarship at Dillard because of a professor who had a strange grudge, or I don't know.
Yeah,
Do
But
you know that teacher?
yeah, I don't know.
I might. I know
I don't know.
everybody.
But hey, the current president at Dillard is helping me work that out. So look at God. So I, with my life in flux, I made certain decisions I wouldn't usually. One of them was to go on tour. I was always kind of concerned about being away for too long. Would I miss something? Would there be a milestone family event? Or maybe there was just a separation anxiety as a young person who hadn't even been to another continent at that point in life. But I did go on tour. I went to Spain with Betty Wynn and One Accord, and I had a fantastic time. It was so amazing. And as soon as I got home,
Here comes Katrina.
here comes Katrina. And I would not have evacuated except for the fact that growing up, I used the sounds of night as a part of my just personal ritual. Go out at night and just hear the sounds of New Orleans, whether I'm near the near downtown or near the bayou. So I go outside and I don't hear anything. No people, no cars, no frogs, no cicadas, no cats, no dogs, no nothing. And I had never experienced silence like that. So I say, okay, get in motion. And from that moment, I sprung into action, and it took every moment from about 3 a.m. to the moment that the military was closing the interstate right in front of our car, and I had to hop out, plead my case, please let one more car through. And they did. Then I spent 18 hours traveling from New Orleans to Atlanta with no stops because no exits were open, no gas stations were available, and less than a half a tank of gas.
Okay, wait, rewind. So 18 hours.
A
Yes.
6-hour ride, no.
Yes.
It normally, to get to Houston from New Orleans, 5 and
Atlanta.
a half. Oh,
Yeah,
Atlanta, 6. Right.
Yeah.
What time or what day did you leave?
This was technically the day of the storm before the rain.
That was that Sunday.
Before the
Okay.
rain, yeah. So and for anyone who knows the timeline, the levees hadn't breached and whatnot, but the storm itself had arrived.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for that. Just a little intro for where we were in 2005 from the different generations. We're going to allow some music now.
Yeah, let
And
us
come back.
purify our aura just a little bit. We're going to play a selection. All of us have some iconic teachers who are part of our development. And we're from different, there's a different year span with all of them, but we're gonna go with one of the figures, a guy by the name of Clyde Kerr Jr., very instrumental in the development of music in New Orleans. And we need to, Alan, get some money because we need to do a whole thing on Clyde Kerr.
Yes.
All right, so we'll do, what, Treme?
We'll do Treme. Yeah.
Yeah. And
We'll do-
Treme,
yeah, go ahead.
Treme was a song Clyde had written, and it's about a stroll. It's a beautiful Mardi Gras day, and he talks about before the interstate in New Orleans, the majestic oaks that line Claiborne Avenue, and he lived in a neighborhood which was called Back of Town, and how his parents, people would come up for Mardi Gras on the avenue, and they had, picnic style day with all of the other stuff, Mardi Gras Indians and, processions and all of that. So, Treme. Gentlemen.
Yes, we're going to shout out the late Clyde Kerr Jr. one more time. He actually was the jazz department chair for the longest in NOCCA's history. Again, NOCCA's been around since 1974. The first class to graduate was 1975, and he taught students in the 80s, the 90s, and 2000s. He touched at least everyone on this
I think
stage.
Clyde got there in 85, 86.
So he got there in 85, 86, and was there until even taught trombone Shorty and John Baptiste and the formerly Christian Scott, now Chief Zion Atunde Ajwa, and Andrew Baham as well.
Yeah.
And Gentleman Sharp.
Gentleman Sharp. And Steven.
You know, hello.
Just everybody. Just everybody.
Because
He didn't teach me, but he was a great mentor, and that was what I miss most about Clyde. You know, we had all these elder statesmen, and they mentored. They made sure that information was passed off.
that was going to be my next statement very quickly, briefly, because I have two. Think about the time at NOCCA, whether it was a teacher or a mentor or a master class moment that was impactful for you at your time at NOCCA. So one or two, whoever wants to speak. And we have a second question.
Actually, during that time, in the 7th grade, when I was at NOCCA Academy, the middle school, Mr. Kerr brought in the then Christian Scott, who was, he was at Berklee College of Music at the time. But Christian came in and taught a master class, which led to my first professional gig, which was a tribute to Clyde Kerr. And I got to play alongside Christian, who in a way took me under his wing and led to my first Grammy nomination. So all of that started at NOCCA under Clyde Kerr Jr.'s leadership.
Okay, so he just glazed over the fact that he was a Grammy-nominated artist in the 7th grade.
You got to put it in there at some point. You gotta,
Ninth grade.
That didn't happen until 2018. That didn't happen until 2018, but the seeds were planted in
Wonderful.
2004, 2005.
That's beautiful.
It's great, though. It's good.
like I said, you got to let them know. You know, you put it on the table.
Please,
Exactly. You know.
the talent.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that first moment for me was, I shared that, actually. I wound up sharing that with Mr. Kerr, my senior year. So my freshman year at NOCCA, you know, he always used to teach in a way that wasn't traditional, in a sense, you know. And in a traditional setting, in a traditional conservatory setting, it would always be, this is this, and this is, and right here you can look it up on the board, and it's this, you know, and you figure it out as you go along. But his teaching, just like all the rest of them, actually in that whole group, which was Baptiste, Alvin Baptiste, Kid Jordan, and then a host of other people. Like, they taught by osmosis. You know, it was I'm going to give you this, and I'm going to plant the seed, and you know, I'm going to sit and patiently wait and watch it grow, and I'm going to water you every time when you're thirsty, right? So he always used to talk. He always used to use his hands, and he would always try to with every class, every session, he'd always talk about, you know, dealing with your solos. You know, when you want to take that and I want you to keep stretching, like you're trying to get that can of beans in the cupboard, and you know, you gotta keep moving. You know, just gotta keep moving like it's an oyster sandwich, and you know, you gotta, you know, like oyster po' boy. You know that. You know, so he always used the thing, and that was my first experience ever being taught, or you know, getting the information in a way that it will stick with me forever. So.
Okay, I feel obligated to share my little moment.
Oh, go ahead.
But you go. We're going back to 1975, 76.
I can.
Please, bring us there.
Well, Ellis Marcellus was the first teacher, and I was under Ellis. I was in the second graduating class from NOCCA. And my biggest moment with Ellis was we were learning these songs every day, and somewhere after a year, Ellis told myself and two other students, Elton Heron, who was a bassist, and Kent Jordan, he said, "Look, I want y'all to start to playing with me on weekends." Like, wow, really? Yeah, we'll be playing at Lou and Charlie's, which was the biggest jazz club in the city. And we were making $32.50 a night. That was a lot of money
big
in
money, big
1975. That was big. And I did it. I went on a scale, and I said, "Well, what would $32.50 be in today's money? It'd be like close to $300 or $250 somewhere in there." That was good for high school students. I decided not to go to my prom because I was making that kind of money. So, so we going on, and just to show you how that really helped me, I saved my money. My first year of college was $77 at Southern for 10 credit hours. For the fall, a full semester was $165. So I did a whole year with Ellis, saving $32.50. I was rich. Well, Clyde Kerr and I had a different relationship because his mom, his dad, and his dad's family were extended families of my family, which was the Chatters family from the matriarchic side. Plenty musicians. Clyde daddy was a musician and a music teacher. My mom was was an opera singer and a music teacher. They both taught at Grunwald School of Music. And so that was a connection where Clyde and I had. We felt like we were extended family. And I played on Clyde's only recorded record. Myself, well, Herlin Riley played 2 songs, I did 2. And Herman LeBeau played on it also. And the other thing was his last gig, I had the privilege to play on his last gig at Lou and Charlie's. So we had developed, and we taught his last year teaching, like Gladney said, we were dismissed from our school, and it hurt us. And I could have saved my job, actually, because our administrator came to me and said, "Look, I got to get rid of somebody," and telling me, "I need you to tell Clyde." And I refused. I said, "Man, how could I do something like that?" I walked away from the job, just out of respect. I wasn't going to allow that to have me do that. And then Alvin Baptiste was another one who was a relative, an uncle, and I played in his group. And like Drew said, all of these individuals, and Kid was another one. That was another uncle of mine. So I got all of this music coming from all sides. I had no choice. Even though I was the worst musician in my family, I still had no choice because I saw all of these different signs of excellence and examples of it, even from my mom. And, you know, what you were trying to say, well, they were mystics.
Yeah.
They were mystics because they taught to that other side. They got us in tune with parts of our body, our mind, our development, our thought process.
I think this the way they taught was relative to life.
Yeah.
In general, and
Yeah.
how are you going to function as a person rather than just being this virtuoso. I mean, because, you know, we were all kind of self-driven anyways.
Yeah.
You know, when you got to know back then, especially back then when I was coming up, if you went to NOCCA, you were a self-driven person by leaps and bounds. And all you needed was just someone to just kind of, like I said, you know, when you were, by the time you got dry, somebody just poured some water on you and you were good.
Do you have a special moment or a memory of a NOCCA time?
I have many, and if I had to distill it down to one, I'm gonna treat it chronologically. There was a time during my years at NOCCA where Clyde Kerr Jr. took leave because he had some health issues, and at that time, Kent Jordan took his place. And at 17 years old, I was chesting up to Kent, letting him know I wasn't afraid of him anymore and all of this. And, you know, that made us friends, though. But this story is not about me at 17. It's about me at 11 and a half. because those were that was my introduction to Kent when I was scared of him. And I'm thinking that I'm just doing an extracurricular after-school activity, actually a program that Jonathan Bloom got me into. So I got to give him those flowers. I'm here because of him. And
Yes.
Yes.
so I'm in this program, and it's like an after-school extracurricular thing, and like being at band or football practice. But lo and behold, Kent comes in one day and he says, "We got a gig next week." Mind blown. So we set up the gig. It's at Planet Hollywood, and that lets you know how long ago that was. So we set up at Planet Hollywood. We played a gig. He's putting charts in front of me. You know, my hands are shaking. I'm nervous, but I did all right. And at the end, this is the moment that I bring it up for. At the end of the gig, he says, "You did good. Gig is over. Go get the money." I said, "What?" He said, "The man's office is right up those stairs. Go get the money." So I go up there and I put my words together. I'm polite, but I'm direct and assertive. And I come back with the money. And he said, "Never be scared to go get the money."
Well, we trained at NOCCA to be professional artists, and so
Yeah.
yes.
They told us that was one of the prerequisites if you were going to be a musician. You have to be rewarded.
Okay, so I'll ask this one question, maybe one or two, and then we'll have another song. Let's think about returning to the art after the storm, after we have evacuated, maybe settled in our different cities, or if we did come back to New Orleans. Think about how your NOCCA trainer prepared you for challenges to rebuilding your life, either in your career in the arts, be that teaching in the art, be that still a student, or a professional artist. Anyone?
I'll start again. It took me about a month or two to realize when I was in Houston, Texas. They call it Big H. I call it Big for nothing. I love it. I really thought it was a nice place, but in terms of the cultural breadth that I was looking for, or that I was used to, or that I grew up in here, it was nowhere near what I needed. If I told Drew earlier, if I would have stayed in Houston over 6 months, I would be dead, literally. I was starving. Because for music, it's not a day go by. You can't go in this community somewhere if you want to hear some music or catch it just going down the street at random in any kind of way. And I didn't have that. So Clyde and Kid came to Houston. And I found out they were in Houston. They were playing at the El Dorado Club. It was a historic club in South Houston. I'm in North Houston. Now, y'all, anybody know anything about Texas? Everything is big. From
Far away from each other.
my neighborhood to the middle of where they were was 35 miles in the city limits.
Right.
I left my house. My wife said, "Where are you going this time of night?" I said, "Uncle Kid and Clyde in town. I got to find them. If I don't hear no music, I'm going to die." I didn't even know where I was going. To this day, I couldn't tell you. You couldn't pay me $1 million to tell you how I found the El Dorado Club. But I found it. And I walked in and I saw Alvin Fielder, Kid. What's my man name? Played bass. William Parker and Clyde Kerr and Kid playing to a sellout crowd. And anybody know anything about Kid music? It was very unorthodox and it was very abstract, but that's what I needed at that moment. And they gave it to me. And at that point, I made up my mind, because we had started getting word that you got to start the schools back and we got to get little dribbles of people back into New Orleans. I had made up my mind I was coming back. So 6 months later, I arrived in New Orleans. But it was hard. There was a lot of silence around here. It was a lot of things we had to do to rebuild this place. It was not easy to put the breath back. And see, you can always buy chairs and rugs and lights, but the culture, that intangible, unmeasurable part. The breath was the challenge. And I wanted to be a part of that. Now, NOCCA prepared me for that because, and also my family members, Alvin was working with NOCCA even before it was NOCCA. We had what we called the adolescence, was the precursor to NOCCA. And I got to be a part of that at the tail end of it. And so the other side of it was that, you know, they always encouraged us. They always took you from your strengths. Even though you had plenty weaknesses, they always found you say, hey man, you ever thought about this like that? And we said, no. And then so it gave you confidence. It built that, well, people don't give you self-esteem. You have to have you know, the self. But whatever it is, it built confidence. And that's how it helped prepare me. Ellis did it by giving me my first job in music. I've been in the union since 1975. Then Bat gave us the gig. We picked up. And then Kid gave us, right before Katrina, Kid had us all playing with Aretha Franklin on Essence in the Dome. And then here come Katrina. But they prepared us to come back. And Clyde always gave messages. He was my mentor as a teacher. Stuff that they didn't teach you in college, because when you got to be a teacher, and when you finally got that appointment, they gave you your keys to your room, and they said, God bless you. You know, you went in on a wing and a prayer, because when you opened those pantries or the closets, no telling what you would find, and most of the time it was nothing. So you had to make wine out of water quick and figure out how to be creative and how to hold your job. So they taught us that. I don't want to go on.
No, that's great. That's great.
Yeah.
If we could, since we want to land that NOCCA definitely gave us the resilience that we needed. And while we have this moment, maybe we can hear some more music and come back to
we can
another chat.
we could do
Okay,
something
let's
else.
put our hands
What y'all
together
do?
for.
DJ, y'all do that? Which one y'all was playing? That was Leo.
The Leo's Lady?
Leo's Lady.
You can do Leo?
I might mess that up.
All right, this tune we're gonna do is another Clyde Kerr original tune. One of those tunes that became the pantheon of the repertoire for us, because Clyde made such an impact on all of our playing and taught us all that good stuff. This one is entitled Leo's Lady.
Just call the bridge when you're ready. Just call the bridge when
I'll
you're ready.
probably remember it when we get halfway through. like that. It's something like
That's
that.
wonderful. You know, I know we want to get at least one more song in, so I'll make this question relatively quick, and whoever, maybe one or two of you, can speak on it. Since we are looking
That
back,
can't happen.
well, we'll see. We'll see. We are here 20 years after the storm, 50 years after NOCCA opened its doors in our 50th anniversary. If you had one message or one piece of advice for a current NOCCA student, what would that be? Yes, Andrew.
Keep practicing. That's it. You know, here's the thing, man. You know, it never, this part of the process never gets old or it never stops. So I'll say that. This part of the process never stops. Like, you know, your craft is a lifelong journey. Yeah, lifelong journey. So, you know, keep practicing.
Years ago, Clyde Kerr Jr. told me that my horn was my ticket. And
To the dance.
to wherever I wanted to go. And my horn has taken me all over the world and back again. And for the future for NOCCA students, whatever the craft is, commit to it and do it. Do the work, and you will be rewarded for it.
I would say learn to exist on paper, study business, study finance, and you know, when you're in your 40s, you're going to feel the same. You're going to be the same person, but 20 some odd years will have passed, and you'll be glad that you've learned to document yourself and your career choices, and you'll be able to present things to the system to be able to have the things that the people around you have. If you bury yourself in your horn and in charts and in gigs, if anything happens, you just have cash under the mattress, and that's not gonna get it, because we didn't know Katrina was coming. I made so much money before Katrina, spent it as fast as I got it. Katrina happened, suddenly I had whatever was in my pocket until it was gone. So I had to learn about savings and annuities and Roth IRAs and diversified portfolios and
Heard
credit
that,
unions
brother.
and to put my life back together. But if I had a time machine, I would tell my teenage self to do all of that at that time.
Yeah. I would tell them what you're studying right now, they don't have a job for it. So keep it open, be creative. I came into the school system and I was a teacher, basically, a traditional teacher for about 3 or 4 years. And every job I had after those 3 or 4 years, I created myself within the system. And I worked for over 38 years in the system. And I had all kind. Everybody said, "Man, how you got that job? How you did this and how you did that?" And I got jobs where I was working with. I put collaboratives together, like with the Monk Institute and the school system, and I got to work with 50 of the biggest artists. People I used to look at their album covers and dream that, what was this person like? And to realize that, you know, I was living a dream. And so for them to dream and to be creative, AI is letting us know you're going to have to really be creative. So if you're going to stay in this game called the arts, you're going to have to be creative. So don't just be a traditional person and fit in a certain circle or a square, and then that's you. No. Think, stretch the envelope. That's it, man.
Thank you so much. So we're going to close out this presentation with one last song. But everybody, please put your hands together for the NOCCA alumni that we have with us. Jonathan Bloom on drums, class of 1976. Andrew Baham on trumpet, class of 1998. Gladney on saxophone, class of 2010. And on the keys, piano man, Gentleman Sharp, class of 2000. This afternoon's been brought to you by the NOCCA Foundation in partnership with the Jazz Museum. Please celebrate the arts. Visit us at NOCCAfoundation.org. Make a donation if you're watching from near and far. And stay in tune.
All right, we're gonna do this last tune. It's by the late great Alvin Baptiste. It's entitled Mozart.
Is that we gonna do it? This is gonna do it?
Thank y'all.